It's 3 a.m. on a cold Colorado morning. An officer on routine patrol swings his flashlight behind a local restaurant and stops dead. Lying there in the dark is the naked body of a young woman. She's 20 years old. She's a United States Army soldier, and somebody worked very, very hard to make sure nobody ever found out what happened to her. What follows is a 34-year hunt for a killer who walked among his fellow soldiers, attended their gatherings, and smiled in their faces while carrying the darkest secret imaginable. This is the story of Army specialists Darlene Krashoc and the man who thought he got away with it, a body found with DNA evidence, but no suspect, a case that went cold for nearly 2 decades, a technology that didn't exist when she was killed, that would eventually bring her killer to justice, and a man who lived a completely normal life for 34 years, while the family of the woman he murdered never stopped looking for answers. March 1987, Fort Carson, Colorado. One of the largest military installations in the United States, home to thousands of active duty soldiers stationed in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains. Among them is 20-year-old Darlene Krashoc, a young woman from West Virginia who enlisted right out of high school. By all accounts, she was exactly the kind of person everyone liked, kind-hearted, compassionate, full of life. She was assigned to the 73rd Maintenance Company. She had a future. She had people who loved her. And on the evening of March 16, 1987, she had a plan. That night, Darlene headed out with members of her unit to a local club called Shuffles. Nothing unusual. Just young soldiers blowing off steam after a long week. Witnesses placed her inside the club, laughing, dancing, alive. She was last seen leaving between midnight and 1 a.m. Nobody saw where she went after that. What they didn't know, what nobody knew yet, is that somewhere between that exit and sunrise, someone made a decision that would haunt an entire family for the next 34 years. At approximately 3 a.m. on March 17, 1987, officers with the Colorado Springs Police Department are on routine patrol near 2710 South Academy Boulevard. As one officer swings around the back of the Korean Club restaurant, a separate location from where Darlene spent her evening, he finds something that stops him cold. A body, female, unclothed. What he doesn't know yet, standing in that parking lot, is that he is looking at a crime scene that has already been manipulated. The killer didn't just take a life, they moved the body. The autopsy would later confirm what investigators feared. Darlene had not been killed behind that restaurant. She was murdered elsewhere, then transported and dumped there like she meant nothing. The cause of death, strangulation, with a wire clothes hanger pulled tight around her throat. She had also been beaten, raped, and the medical examiner found bite marks on her body. The nature of the attack was so savage, so deliberately violent, that when the FBI was called in to assist with a criminal profile, they couldn't explain it. "We don't know why somebody would develop this kind of anger," said the lead detective on the case. In the days and weeks that followed, Colorado Springs police and Army investigators threw everything they had at this case. Hundreds of interviews, base personnel records, anyone who had contact with Darlene in the lead-up to her murder. They collected DNA evidence directly from the victim's body, a significant development for 1987, when DNA technology was still in its infancy. But there was a problem. Having the DNA meant nothing without a suspect to match it to, and so the evidence sat, sealed, waiting. Meanwhile, Darlene's family back in West Virginia were left with nothing but unanswered questions. Her parents circulated posters, they made calls, they pleaded for information. Nothing came, and the case quietly went cold. Here is what nobody knew at the time. The man who killed Darlene Krashoc was not some stranger passing through Colorado. He was not a ghost. He was not a mystery. He was a soldier, stationed at Fort Carson, living just 3 miles from where her body was found. He had a name, and for the next 32 years, he would keep it to himself. Fast forward to 2004, the Colorado Springs Police Department decides to reopen the Krashoc case and submits the preserved DNA evidence for new laboratory testing. Nothing actionable comes from it. They try again in 2011, still no match. But in 2016, something changes. Army Criminal Investigation Command agents working alongside Colorado Springs Police submit the DNA to the United States Army Criminal Investigation Laboratory, and this time, they add something new to the process. A private company specializing in a technique called DNA phenotyping. DNA phenotyping uses genetic markers to predict physical traits, things like ancestry, hair color, eye color, and face shape. Investigators provide the company with Darlene's evidence. The company gets to work. In 2017, police released 2 composite images to the public, one showing what the suspect may have looked like at age 25, and another showing him between 50 and 55. They publish the images, they wait. No credible tips come in. But investigators are not done. By early 2019, investigators make a decision that will change everything. They take the unknown DNA profile from the 1987 crime scene and upload it to GED Match, an open-source genealogy database that compiles genetic data from popular services like 23andMe and Ancestry.com. The idea is simple but powerful. If any biological relatives of the killer uploaded their DNA to these services, the algorithm should flag them as a partial match. And that's exactly what happens. The database returns 3 women, believed to be second, third, and fourth cousins of the unknown suspect. Using those partial matches, investigators begin painstakingly building a family tree. Branch by branch, name by name. Working backwards and forwards through decades of records, they follow the tree until it narrows down to a single person, a name they've never heard before in connection with this case, Michael Whyte. Here is where it gets chilling. Michael Whyte is not some random civilian. Investigators pull his records and discover that in September 1986, just months before Darlene's murder, Whyte was assigned to Fort Carson, the same base where Darlene was stationed. And in 1987, his listed home address placed him just 3 miles from where her body was found. The composite sketch from the phenotyping? Investigators compare it to Whyte's photographs. It matches. By May 2019, Michael Whyte is 58 years old, retired from the military, and living quietly in Thornton, Colorado, a suburb of Denver. He has a wife, a house, a life. He has no idea what is coming. Investigators begin surveillance. They need one thing, a voluntary DNA sample from Whyte that they can legally compare to the crime scene evidence. They watch him. They wait. And one day, he does what people do every single day without thinking. He throws away a cup. Officers retrieved the discarded drink cup from a restaurant Whyte visited. They also collect a DNA sample from the door handle of his car. The samples go to the lab. The results come back. It's a match. After 32 years, investigators are now looking at the DNA profile of the man who strangled Darlene Krashoc to death with a wire clothes hanger and dumped her body behind a restaurant like she was nothing. In June 2019, members of the Violent Offender Fugitive Task Force, the Colorado Springs Police Cold Case Homicide Unit, and Army CID converge on Michael Whyte's home in Thornton. Neighbors peer from their windows as law enforcement swarms the quiet street. Whyte is taken into custody without incident. He is charged with first-degree murder. His wife, blindsided, publicly states she does not believe he is guilty. Michael Whyte says nothing. 2 years later, in June 2021, Michael Whyte sits in an El Paso County courtroom facing a jury of his peers. He is 60 years old now, gray, quiet. Prosecutors lay out their case, methodically connecting Whyte to Darlene through DNA, through his military records, through his address, through the composite sketch that looked like a younger version of the man now sitting at the defense table. The jury deliberates. It does not take long. June 24th, 2021, 34 years, 3 months, and 7 days after Darlene Krashoc was found in that parking lot, the jury returns a verdict. Guilty. 2 counts of first-degree murder. Here is what we know about Darlene Krashoc. She was 20 years old. She enlisted right out of high school because she believed in something bigger than herself. Her parents described her as kind-hearted, compassionate, and a fighter. She was a fighter, and she never wanted to give up. Her mother Betty told reporters after the verdict, "I know she didn't want to give her life up." In the days before her murder, Darlene called her mother from Fort Carson. Something in her voice had shifted. She seemed afraid. She said she didn't want to be stationed there anymore, but she wouldn't say why. She never got the chance to explain. What haunts this case more than anything isn't just what happened on March 16, 1987, it's what happened the morning after. An officer walked right past the place where Darlene was killed. Other soldiers went about their day. Michael Whyte, according to prosecutors, continued his military career at Fort Carson for another year after the murder, eating in the same mess hall, walking the same grounds, surrounded by people who had no idea what he had done. He left Fort Carson in August 1987. He went on to serve in the military until 1998. He retired. He bought a house. He lived a life for 34 years. Darlene Krashoc was buried with full military honors. Her family waited 34 years for this day. Been waiting for this day for 34 years, her father Paul said after the verdict. It's a good feeling. It will never be enough. It never is. But Darlene Krashoc's name is no longer just a cold case file on a shelf. It is a reminder that no matter how long it takes, DNA doesn't lie, science doesn't sleep, and some investigators refuse to stop until the job is done. Rest in peace, Specialist Darlene Krashoc. You were not forgotten. As of 2026, Michael Whyte remains in prison serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He has maintained his innocence and retains the right to appeal.